Right now, while you watch this, your brain is quietly changing. Not in 10 years, not next month, today. 5 completely ordinary habits are secretly rewiring how your brain works, and most of them feel harmless. Which one are you doing right now? You already know exercise shapes your body. New research shows your brain reacts just as fast, sometimes faster, and the changes show up on brain scans within months, not decades. Neuroscience teams spent this year tracking exactly which everyday choices leave a physical mark on brain tissue, using scans, blood tests, and long-term studies that followed the same people for years. 5 choices stood out above the rest, out of hundreds researchers looked at. 4 are habits you control completely, starting today, if you want to. The 5th is something you never chose at all, and it might explain more than the other 4 combined. Stay until the end, because that last one changes how you should think about everything before it. Let's start with something almost everyone does after a long day: turning on the television. Researchers tracked close to 1,700 adults for years, watching how their brains aged over time. People who watched television often during their 40s and 50s showed something unexpected decades later when their brains were finally scanned. Specific regions had physically shrunk. Not random regions either. The areas responsible for memory, for decision-making, for processing what your eyes see. The exact tools you use to plan a week, remember a name, or judge distance while driving. Researchers adjusted for age, health, education, and lifestyle, and the patterns still held firm. Here's the twist nobody expected. The content on screen made almost no difference at all. Documentaries, dramas, sports, comedies, it barely changed the outcome. What mattered was simply the number of hours the brain spent passively receiving information instead of generating it. Multiply that by years, and you're talking about roughly the same total hours as a part-time job, except this one may be quietly downsizing the exact brain regions you rely on every single day. Picture 2 people, the same age, same health, same income. The only real difference is a few hours of screen time a night, repeated for 2 decades straight. On a brain scan, that difference becomes visible, in the exact same way years of sun exposure eventually show up on skin. Quietly, then all at once. Second habit, and this one might surprise you because it has nothing to do with what you eat, it's about when. In a 6-month trial, researchers had older women eat every meal inside an 8 to 9 hour window each day, no other diet changes, same food, same calories, just a tighter clock. By the end of 6 months, the group with the shorter eating window scored measurably better on tests of planning and problem solving than the group that ate across the full day. 6 months. That's all it took to show up clearly on a cognitive test in people who had lived a lifetime with their old eating pattern already set. Scientists believe the effect comes from giving the brain's support systems, blood sugar regulation, cellular repair, a longer uninterrupted break each day. The same way a phone needs quiet downtime to run its updates properly instead of patching itself mid-use. Your brain never officially clocks out, but apparently it notices exactly when your stomach does, and it rewards you for the silence with sharper thinking months later. Third, and this one is a little unsettling, deep inside your brain, you have immune cells called microglia. Their job is cleanup, clearing out damaged material while you sleep, like a maintenance crew working the night shift. Every single night, without exception, year after year. Researchers studying Alzheimer's found something strange in mice with early brain plaques. The microglia became overactive. Instead of quietly cleaning, they triggered inflammation. And that inflammation itself was disrupting sleep, stealing up to 2 full hours a night, night after night, without the mice or their owners ever knowing why. So the very cells meant to protect the brain were, in a sense, keeping it awake, which then gave them even less time to do their job properly. It's a loop. Poor sleep feeds inflammation, and inflammation feeds poor sleep, night after night, compounding quietly like unpaid interest on a debt nobody remembers taking out. Scientists managed to restore those missing 2 hours of sleep in the mice by calming the overactive immune response directly. The plaques were still there, but sleep came back almost immediately, within days, which raises a bigger question researchers are now chasing seriously. How much of what we casually call brain aging is really just the maintenance crew losing its schedule, one interrupted night at a time, for years? Some researchers now suspect sleep itself is less a symptom of brain aging and more a hidden cause of it, quietly running in the background of every bad night you've ever brushed off as ordinary tiredness. Fourth, a finding that surprised even the researchers running the study. A single dose. Not a routine, not a daily habit, just one dose of psilocybin, the compound found in certain mushrooms, given in a controlled clinical setting under full medical supervision. Brain scans taken afterward showed measurable changes in activity and possibly in structure that were still present a full month later, long after the immediate experience had ended. The participants who showed the biggest increase in flexible, varied brain activity also reported the strongest shifts in mood and outlook, lasting well beyond the day of the session itself. One single afternoon, weeks of measurable, scan-confirmed change from a single controlled dose. It's a reminder that your brain isn't a fixed machine that only shifts through years of slow, repeated habits. Under the right, controlled, medically supervised conditions, it can reorganize itself almost overnight, the same way a river can carve a new path after one flood instead of centuries of slow, patient erosion. Which brings us to the habit that might matter more than the other 4 put together. Here's the twist nobody wants to hear. All 4 of those, screen time, eating windows, sleep, novel experiences, genuinely matter, and the effects researchers measured are real and repeatable. But researchers studying a gene called APOE2 found something that puts all of it into perspective. People carrying this gene variant showed less DNA damage inside their brain cells, and their neurons recovered from stress far more efficiently than average, seemingly independent of lifestyle choices entirely, regardless of what they ate, watched, or slept through. In other words, some people are walking around with a built-in advantage they never earned, never chose, and never had to work for a single day of their life to receive. This isn't meant to make your habits feel pointless. They still shift the odds, sometimes dramatically, sometimes by years of healthy brain function gained or lost. But researchers increasingly believe your long-term brain health is a mix of what you actively choose and something you were quietly handed before you ever had any say in the matter at all, decided before you were born. So the real question isn't only what are you doing to your brain right now, it's also what did your brain start with? And once you know both answers, how much of the outcome was ever really in your hands to begin with? 2 people can follow the exact same 5 habits for 30 years and still land in different places, simply because one of them started the race a few steps ahead, on a starting line nobody gets to see. Here's the number that puts everything together. Early estimates suggest genetics like APOE2 could account for a meaningful share of who develops serious brain decline and who doesn't, purely from the genetic draw at birth. But the same research teams say chosen daily habits explain a comparable share, sometimes just as large as the genetic piece, maybe even larger over a full lifetime. Meaning your everyday choices might matter almost as much as the genetic hand you were dealt at birth, even if you'll never fully escape that hand. Nobody has the exact percentage yet. The research is still catching up to the question, and probably will be for years. But for the first time, habits and genetics are being treated as equally powerful forces, instead of one being used as a convenient excuse for the other. That single shift in thinking, from either or to both at once, is quietly rewriting how doctors talk about brain aging with their patients. So the next time you reach for the remote, skip a full night's sleep, or eat your last meal at midnight, remember, your brain is quietly taking notes on all of it, second by second, whether you're paying attention or not. Which of these 5 surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely read every one of them. And if this changed how you'll spend tonight, hit like and subscribe, because your brain just spent the last 10 minutes changing, whether you noticed it happening or not.